STEM lab or our SM lab, Innovation Lab. We've just received all these fancy gadgets, I like to call them. We've got 3D printers and, like you said, robotic arms. And look, that's fantastic.
So the magic arm is a tool I've introduced to children to help them to read and to write. I feel that children sometimes have a disconnect between their phonics knowledge and how they can use that to read and spell. So by using their magic arm, cat, actually enables them to feel the process that they're going through when they read and spell. They can sound it out and they feel blending it together. And it's great because it's a tool that they can take everywhere. So they can use it in the classroom, they can use it at home. If they're reading in their supermarket, they always have their magic arm with them. So it's a tool that they can use wherever they go. So actions really help us to remember. And for children, when writing, they often miss out words in their sentences. So if the sentence is, the dog has 4 legs, they might write the dog 4 legs. They might miss out a word. So by using actions, so the dog has 4 legs, the dog has 4 legs. When they go to write it down, they can actually do the actions and they will learn not to miss out words in their sentence. So in the English lesson I've just done, unfortunately my magic arm was broken. So when I tried to use it, it didn't work. So the children had to create a magic potion to make my magic arm work again. So it just enabled them to be a bit more excited about their learning.
On there we work on documents real time, so students don't just have to work in their books and work on individual tasks. They can work as an entire group and work collaboratively on that, and they can see each other's work appear in real time, which is a real handy way, especially speeding up some of the note-taking process. They can take it as a class and then read back on everyone else's work and critique it. Also use that to share newspaper articles, find videos, and there's so many brilliant, especially for geography, websites for data visualization, which you wouldn't have been able to use in the past. Again, this isn't groundbreaking, but just using music in the classroom where I can, it's handy just to be able to go on Spotify or YouTube or something like this, and then rather than using a timer for a task, just using one track.
Sometimes if I'll put children in mixed ability groups and they'll pick a task card, or I'll give them a task card depending on the task, they're all coloured matched with the word, with the Bloom's taxonomy here. So for example, creating is obviously red. So design a new front cover and title. So it just depends on that. Sometimes I let children choose one, what they want to do, so they can personalise their own learning, or sometimes I'll give them a task. So it's really good to create assessment, evaluate assignments, personalised learning, used for self-assessment and project-based learning. So each question becomes more challenging the higher that it goes. So I make sure I have engaging, relevant and creative lessons. I have different mediums that I use to help facilitate their learning. So for example, for big writing, I use a lot of Ros Wilson's big writing, or Pi Corbett Talk for writing. Use a lot of interactive games, so Kahoot. I use a lot of vocabulary and language structures. So for example, sentence stems or sentence frames, whereby their sentence, the cards are all split into different sentences and different colours. So the start of the sentence might be in a red, the middle might be in a blue, the end in green, and punctuation might be in red. So they have to choose one of each colour to build their own sentences. So this I find is really good for scaffolding.
You know, particularly at Kingsgate, where we've got access to a lot of technology and we've got access to lots of books, and you can ask these questions and you can ask students, okay, how are we going to find out this? What can we use? And then you can use all this other ideas to get them collaborating with each other as well. And then, you know, they're taking the ownership of their learning, and at the end of the lesson, obviously if you see maybe they're going the wrong way, you step in and you guide them back towards the right way.
I think knowing the children's really important, and building that relationship with them, knowing how to tap into that creativity for each child is really, really vital. And it's also just being aware of different learning styles. So again, we will use ICT, we will use practical aspects, we will use drama, we will use visual aspects. We will learn things in kind of different ways, where it's not just a child, again, just watching from a board or showing them a video, but actually just varying the ways that we teach. But I think the biggest thing for me
enabling them to be creative. It's just exposing them to lots of creativity, exposing them to stories, lots of imaginative things around them, making sure they're inspired when they come into class.
They go to stations and have to bring that information back, so it's actually reading for information. Obviously there's lots of practicals. In IGCSE biology we will be doing an onion cell practical in a few weeks time, so the students will actually prepare the slide themselves, focus the microscope. This is one example of an assessment. So this is actually a dichotomous key where students have to classify objects using a question that only has one or two answers. And this is what one student created today. So I can tell that this student has understanding of how dichotomous keys work. And if the opportunity comes up to use 3D printing, then we'll be able to use that to examine maybe the structure of an organ, because the heart is something that comes up a lot on the exams.
And then we move into the abstract, which is where they then replicate those by using objects or drawings to show what they've learned. And then the final step of that is then making those numbers. So they've really unpacked the concept before they even start looking at numbers, invent their own text type of the one they've been looking at, so that I can really see how well they've picked up on the features and the grammatical elements of the text type, and they've applied it to their own piece of writing.
And so, teach them from there. So the photography thing was quite a simple thing, because it showed them something else that an iPad can do rather than it just being there for video watching. And it's another good way, of introducing them to a different type of art instead of just drawing and colouring and painting. It's another artistic method. So it's really good because it's very simple to use. They go on it, they press a button, they can look at the pictures, and then want to look at the picture again. They go through that. So it's a very sort of simple method of introducing them to ICT and technology and iPads.
Creativity and innovation is also about children learning and discovering things for themselves, making mistakes and learning from their mistakes and changing the way they do something next time. So in science, for example, rather than giving them information, I will always get children to do an experiment. So for example, with waterproof materials, rather than saying this is waterproof, this is not waterproof, one lesson I've done is for them to bring their teddy bear in to go for their first swimming lesson at school, and the children have to design a coat to wrap around their teddy bear because we don't want the teddy bear getting wet. So then I provide lots of materials and children design and create their own coat. And some of the children will pick non-waterproof materials, and that's okay because they'll learn from that experience, and then afterwards we can talk about what we've learned. So I think creativity and innovation is about children discovering things for themselves, making mistakes and learning from that.
Let's jump ahead 5 years. My goodness. And again, I feel like I'm Captain Kirk and I'm sitting in this rocket. And we're ready to blast off into space. What's out there? How exciting? What do we find? What are our students going to be exposed to? And I look back when I was at school to where we are now. My goodness, things have changed, and for the better.